Hello everyone. I'm Ted. And today we will be discussing Chapter 10. Performance and Potential Appraisal. Let's start. Methods of Performance Appraisal. The performance appraisal methods may be classified into three categories, as shown below. Individual evaluation methods, confidential report, essay evaluation, critical incidents, checklists, graphic rating scale, behavior ally anchored rating scales, forced choice method, MBO, multiple person evaluation methods, ranking, paired comparison, forced distribution, other methods, group appraisal, HRA, assessment center, field review. Individual evaluation methods. Confidential report. It is mostly used in government organizations. It is a descriptive report prepared, generally at the end of every year, by the employee's immediate superior. The report highlights the strengths and weaknesses of the subordinate. The report is not data-based. The impressions of the superior about the subordinate are merely recorded there. It does not offer any feedback to the appraisee. The appraisee is not sure about why his ratings have fallen despite his best efforts, why others are rated high when compared to him, how to rectify his mistakes, if any, on what basis he is going to be evaluated next year, etc. Since the report is generally not made public and hence no feedback is available, the subjective analysis of the superior is likely to be hotly contested. In recent years, due to pressure from courts and trade unions, the details of a negative confidential report are given to the appraisee. Essay evaluation. Under this method, the rater is asked to express the strong as well as weak points of the employee's behavior. It is a non-quantitative technique. This method is advantageous in at least one sense, i.e., the essay provides a good deal of information about the employee and also reveals more about the evaluator. The essay evaluation method, however, suffers from the following limitations. It is highly subjective. The supervisor may write a biased essay. The employees who are sycophants will be evaluated more favorably than other employees. Some evaluators may be poor in writing essays on employee performance. Others may be superficial in explanation and use flowery language which may not reflect the actual performance of the employee. It is very difficult to find effective writers. The appraiser is required to find time to prepare the essay. A busy appraiser may write the essay hurriedly without properly assessing the actual performance of the worker. On the other hand, appraiser takes a long time. This becomes uneconomical from the viewpoint of the firm, because the time of the evaluator, supervisor, is costly. Critical incident technique. Under this method, the manager prepares lists of statements of very effective and ineffective behavior of an employee. These critical incidents or events represent the outstanding or poor behavior of employees or the job. The manager maintains logs of each employee, whereby he periodically records critical incidents of the worker's behavior. At the end of the rating period, these recorded critical incidents are used in the evaluation of the worker's performance. Example of a good critical incident of a customer relations officer is, June 10, the officer processed complaints from customer patiently. He was polite in his replies and prompt in resolving the knotty issues. He showed maturity and emotional balance while handling angry protests from customers. This method provides an objective basis for conducting a thorough discussion of an employee's performance. This method avoids recency bias. Most recent incidents get too much emphasis. However, it suffers from the following limitations. Negative incidents may be more noticeable than positive incidents. The supervisors have a tendency to unload a series of complaints about incidents during an annual performance review session. It results in very close supervision which may not be liked by the employee. The recording of incidents may be a chore for the manager concerned, who may be too busy or forget to do it. Most frequently, the critical incidents method is applied to evaluate the performance of superiors. Checklists and weighted checklists. Another simple type of individual evaluation method is the checklist. A checklist represents, In its simplest form, a set of objectives or descriptive statements about the employee and his behavior. If the rater believes strongly that the employee possesses a particular listed trait, he checks the item, otherwise, he leaves the item blank. A more recent variation of the checklist method is the weighted list. Under this, the value of each question may be weighted equally, or certain questions may be weighted more heavily than others. The following are some of the sample questions in a checklist. Is the employee really interested in the task assigned? Is he respected by his colleagues, co-workers? Does he give respect to his superiors? Does he follow instructions properly? Does he make mistakes frequently? A rating score from the checklist helps the manager in evaluation of the performance of the employee. The checklist method has a serious limitation. The rater may be biased in distinguishing the positive and negative questions. He may assign biased weights to the questions. Another limitation could be that this method is expensive and time-consuming. Finally, it becomes difficult for the manager to assemble, analyze, and weigh a number of statements about the employee's characteristics, contributions, and behaviors. Graphic rating scale. Graphic rating scales require an evaluator to indicate on a scale the degree to which an employee demonstrates a particular trait, behavior, or performance result. Rating forms are composed of a number of scales, each relating to a certain job or performance-related dimension, such as job knowledge, responsibility, or quality of work. Each scale is a continuum of scale points, which range from high to low, from good to poor, from most to least effective, and so forth. Scales typically have from 5 to 7 points. Graphic rating scales may or may not define their scale points. The rating scale that is shown below measures two things: quantity of work and quality of work. Carefully constructed graphic rating scales have a number of advantages. Standardization of content permitting comparison of employees. Ease of development use and relatively low development and usage cost. Reasonably high rater and ratee acceptance. A weak spot in such rating scales is that they are susceptible to rating errors which result in inaccurate appraisals. Possible rating errors include halo effect, central tendency, severity, and leniency. The halo effect occurs when a rating on one dimension of an appraisal instrument substantially influences the ratings on other dimensions for the same employee. As a result of the halo effect, an employee is rated about the same across all performance dimensions. Central tendency is a lack of variation or difference among ratings of different subordinates, wherein most employees tend to be rated as average. Leniency refers to an evaluator's tendency to rate most employees very highly across performance dimensions, whereas severity refers to the tendency to rate most employees quite harshly. Behavior ally-anchored rating scales. It is a combination of the rating scale and critical incident techniques of employee performance evaluation. The critical incidents serve as anchor statements on a scale, and the rating form usually contains 6 to 8 specifically defined performance dimensions. It consists of predetermined critical areas of job performance or sets of behavioral statements describing important job performance qualities as good or bad. For example, qualities like interpersonal relationships, adaptability, reliability, and job knowledge. These statements are developed from critical incidents. In this method, an employee's actual job behavior is judged against the desired behavior by recording and comparing the behavior with bars. Developing and practicing bars requires considerable skills and expert knowledge. Evaluation. The ratings are fairly accurate since they are carried out by experts. Since job-specific factors are observed and measured, the ratings are more reliable. Employees tend to accept them readily since they have participated in the method. Allows participants learn from the feedback and grow. The method, however, suffers from the following disadvantages. Requires observational skill and proper determination of critical behaviors. Inadequacies can lead to misleading data. Compilation of critical behaviors takes considerable time and effort, and recording data also involve alert and constant observations, i.e. keeping logs. Less preferable due to similarity to trait measures. This method was developed to eliminate bias and the preponderance of high ratings that might occur in some organizations. The primary purpose of the forced choice method is to correct the tendency of a rater to give consistently high or low ratings to all the employees. This method makes use of several sets of paraphrases, two of which may be positive and two negative, and the rater is asked to indicate which of the four phrases is the most and least descriptive of a particular worker. Actually, the statement items are grounded in such a way that the rater cannot easily judge which statements apply to the most effective employee. The favorable qualities earn a plus credit and the unfavorable ones earn the reverse. The worker gets overplus when the positive factors override the negative ones or when one of the negative phrases is checked as being insignificantly rated. The overall objectivity is increased by using this method in evaluation of employees' performance, because the rater does not know how high or low he is evaluating individual as he has no access to the scoring key. This method, however, has strong limitation. In the preparation of sets of phrases, trained technicians are needed, and as such the method becomes very expensive. Further, managers may rating the employees in the dark. Finally, the results of the force may not be useful for training employees because the rater himself knows how he is evaluating the worker. In spite of these limitations, the forced choice technique is quite popular. Management by objectives. Management by objectives, MBO, also called appraisal by result, planning by objectives, goal management, work planning and review, joint target setting, etc., is an overall philosophy of management that concentrates on measurable goals and end results. It provides a systematic and rational approach to management and helps prevent management by crisis. MBO is based on the assumption that people perform better when they know what is expected of them and can relate their personal goals to the organizational objectives. It also assumes that people are interested in the goal-setting process and in evaluating their performances against the target. In the words of Odiorny, MBO is a process whereby the superior and subordinate managers of an organization jointly identify its common goals, define each individual's major areas of responsibility in terms of results expected of him, and use these measures as guides for operating the unit and assessing the contribution of each of its members. Management by objectives. Important features of this method may be listed thus. Joint goal setting. MBO requires the superior and the subordinate to recognize that the development of objectives is a joint effort. They must be jointly agree and write out their duties and areas of responsibility in their respective jobs. Quantifiable goals. MBO is all about goals that are tangible, verifiable, and measurable. The subordinate in consultation with his superior sets his own short-term goals that are realistic and attainable. Focus on goal achievement. MBO focuses special attention on what must be accomplished, goals, rather than how it is to be accomplished, methods. The superior and the subordinate mutually find out ways and means to achieve the goals that are mutually agreed upon. They mutually set the standards to be followed and decide the norms for evaluating performance. Effective results. MBO paves the way for the attainment of goals by putting resources to best use with a single-minded focus on attainable goals. Subordinates are allowed to think creatively and meet targets. When everyone is aware of what needs to achieve and how the performances is going to be evaluated and rewarded, the end result is superior performance. Consistent support and continued blessings from superiors extend their help whenever and wherever needed. They offer necessary coaching and guidance from time to time. They keep all communication lines open. The whole focus is on getting results, through mutual support, help and cooperation. Merits. MBO helps and increases employee motivation because it relates overall goals to the individual's goals, and helps to increase an employee's understanding of where the organization is and where it is heading. Managers are more likely to compete with themselves than with other managers. This kind of evaluation can reduce internal conflicts that often arise when managers compete with each other to obtain scarce resources. MBO in a means-ends chain. Management at succeeding lower levels in an organization establish targets which are integrated with those at the next higher level. Thus, it can help ensure that everyone's activity is ultimately aimed toward organization's goals. MBO reduces role conflict and ambiguity. Role conflict exists when a person is faced with conflicting demands from two or more supervisors, and role ambiguity exists when a person is uncertain as to how he will be evaluated, or what he has to achieve. Since MBO aims at providing clear targets and their order or priority, it reduces both these situations. MBO provides more objective appraisal criteria. The targets that emerge from the MBO process provide a sound set of criteria for evaluating the manager's performance. MBO forces and aids in planning. By forcing top management to establish a strategy and goals for the entire organization, and by requiring other managers to set their targets and plan how to reach them, MBO identifies problems better and early. Frequent performance review sessions make this possible. MBO identifies performance deficiencies and enables the management and the employees to set individualized self-improvement goals, and thus proves effective in training and development of people. MBO helps the individual manager to develop personal leadership, especially the skills of listening, planning, counseling, motivating and evaluating. This approach to managing instills a personal commitment to respond positively to the organization's major concerns as well as to the development of human assets. Such a manager has a far greater chance to move ahead within the management hierarchy than a non-MBO type. Demerits. It takes a great deal of the manager's time and energy form. An individual becomes so enmeshed in performing assigned functions that he often loses sight of the goal, the reason for performance. It has been called the activity trap by Odiorny. It requires a great deal of investment of the top management's time and effort before it arrives at realistic targets and reviews the performance. MBO is not a panacea for all organizational ills. Those executives who have been involved very often find it difficult to apply MBO concepts to their own work habits. They find it hard to think about the results of work rather than the work itself. They tend to overemphasize goals that are easy to quantify, sometimes forgetting that workers often behave almost like children at play. When the game no longer challenges, interest is soon lost. In some areas, such as cutting costs or increasing sales, measuring performance is a straightforward and more or less objective matter. But in many other areas, such as subordinate development, appraising performance can be an acute problem. Many times neither the managers know the rationale and value of MBO, nor the subordinates are clear about the goals. This unnecessarily becomes more exasperating. There is sometimes a tug of war in which the subordinate tries to set the lowest targets possible and the supervisor the highest. MBO can lead to unrealistic expectations about what can and cannot be reasonably accomplished. Supervisors and subordinates must have very good reality checking skills to use MBO appraisal methods. They will need these skills during the initial stage of objective setting, and for the purposes of self-auditing and self-monitoring. Unfortunately, research studies have shown repeatedly that human beings tend to lack the skills needed to do their own reality checking. Nor are these skills easily conveyed by training. Reality itself is an intensely personal experience, prone to all forms of perceptual bias. Multiple person evaluation methods. Ranking method. This is a relatively easy method of performance evaluation. Under this method, the ranking of an employee in a work group is done against that of another employee. The relative position of each employee is tested in terms of his numerical rank. It may also be done by ranking a person on his job performance against another member of the competitive group. The quintessence of this method is that employees are ranked according to their levels of performance. While using this method, the evaluator is asked to rate employees from highest to lowest on some overall criterion. Though it is relatively easier to rank the best and the worst employees, it is very difficult to rank the average employees. Generally, evaluators pick the top and bottom employees first and then select the next highest and next lowest and move towards the average, middle, employees. The major limitations of this method are: the whole man is compared with another whole man in this method. In practice, it is very difficult to compare individuals possessing varied behavioral traits. This method speaks only of the position where an employee stands in his group. It does not tell anything about how much better or how much worse an employee is when compared to another employee. When a large number of employees are working, ranking of individuals becomes a painstaking issue. There is no systematic procedure for ranking individuals in the organization. The ranking system does not eliminate the possibility of snap judgments. In order to overcome the above limitations, a paired comparison technique has been advanced by organizational scholars. Paired comparison method. Ranking becomes more reliable and easier under the paired comparison method. Each worker is compared with all other employees in the group. For every trait, the worker is compared with all other employees. For instance, when there are 5 employees to be compared, then A's performance is compared with that of B's and decision is arrived at as to who is the better or worse. Next, B is also compared with all others. Since A is already compared with B, this time B is to be compared with only C, D, and E. By this method, when there are 5 employees, 15 decisions are made, comparisons. The number of decisions to be made can be determined with the help of the formulae N and 2. For several individual traits, paired comparisons are made, tabulated, and then rank is assigned to each worker. Though this method seems to be logical, it is not applicable when a group is large. When the group becomes too large, the number of comparisons to be made may become frighteningly excessive. For instance, when n equals 100, comparisons to be made are 100, 100 to 2, equals 100, 98, equals 9,800. Forced distribution method. Under this system, the rater is asked to appraise the employee according to a predetermined distribution scale. The rater's bias is sought to be eliminated here because workers are not placed at a higher or lower end of the scale. Normally, the 2 criteria used here for rating are the job performance and promotability. Further, a 5-point performance scale is used without any mention of descriptive statements. Workers are placed between the 2 extremes of good and bad performances. For instance, workers of outstanding merit may be placed at the top 10% of the scale, 20% may be given good rating, i.e. above average, 40% satisfactory, or average, 20% fair and 10% unsatisfactory, below average or poor. Apart from job performance as the criterion, another equally important factor in this method is promotability. Employees may be classified according to their promotional merits. The scale for this purpose may points, namely, quite likely promotional material, may not be unlikely promotional material. One strong positive forced distribution method is that by forcing the distribution to predetermined percentages, the problem of making use of different with different scales is avoided. Further, this method is appreciated on that it tends to eliminate rater bias. The limitation of using this method in administration, however, is that it may result in low morale, low productive and high absenteeism. Employees who feel that they are productive, but find themselves placed in a lower grade than expected, feel frustrated and exhibit, over a period of time, reluctance to work. Other methods. Group appraisal. In this method, an employee is appraised by a group of appraisers. This group consists of the immediate supervisor of the employee, other supervisors who have close contact with the employee's work, manager, or head of the department, and consultants. The head of the department or manager may be the chairman of the group, and the immediate supervisor may act as the coordinator for the group activities. This group uses any one of multiple techniques discussed earlier. The immediate supervisor enlightens other members about the job characteristics, demands, standards, or performance, etc. Then the group appraises the performance of the employee, compares the actual performance with standards, finds out the deviations, discusses the reasons therefore, suggests ways for improvement of performance, prepares an action plan, studies the need for change in the job analysis and standards, and recommends changes, if necessary. This method eliminates personal biases to a large extent, as performance is evaluated by multiple rates. But it is a very time-consuming process. Human resource accounting. It is the process of accounting for people as an organizational resource. It tries to place a value on organizational human resources as assets and not as expenses. The HRA process shows the investment the organization makes in its people and how the value of these people changes over time. The acquisition cost of employees is compared to the replacement cost from time to time. The value of employees is increased by investments made by the company to improve the quality of its human resources, such as training and development skills acquired by employees over a period of time through experience. When qualified, competent people leave an organization, the value of human assets goes down. In this method, employee performance is evaluated in terms of costs and contributions of employees. Human resource costs include expenditure incurred by the company in hiring, training, compensating, and developing people. The contributions of human resources is the money value of labor productivity. The cost of human resources may be taken as the standard. Employee performance can be measured in terms of employee contribution to the organization. Employee performance can be taken as positive when contribution is more than the cost, and performance can be viewed as negative if cost is more than contribution. Positive performance can be measured in terms of percentage of excess of employee contribution over the cost of employee. Similarly, negative performance can be calculated in terms of percentage of deficit in employee contribution compared to the cost of employee. Assessment Center. This method of appraising was first applied in the German army in 1930. Later, business and industrial houses started using this method. This is not a technique of performance appraisal by itself. In fact, it is a system in which several individuals are assessed by experts using various techniques. These techniques include the methods discussed before, in addition to in-basket, role-playing, case studies, simulation exercises, structured insight, and transactional analysis. In this approach, individuals from various departments are brought together to spend 2 or 3 days working on an individual or group assignment similar to the ones they would be handling when promoted. Observers rank the performance of each and every participant in order of merit. Since assessment centers are basically meant for evaluating the potential of candidates to be considered for promotion, training, or development, they offer an excellent means for conducting evaluation processes in an objective way. All those assessed get an equal opportunity to show their talents and capabilities and secure promotion based on merit. Since evaluators know the position requirements intimately and are trained to perform the evaluation process in an objective manner, the performance ratings may find favor with majority of the employees. A considerable amount of research evidence is available to support the contention that people chosen by this method prove better than those chosen by other methods. The center enables individuals working in low-status departments to compete with people from high-profile departments and enhance their chances of promotion. Such opportunities, when created on a regular basis, will go a long way in improving the morale of promising candidates working in less important positions. Field Review Method. Where subjective performance measures are used, there is scope for raters' biases influencing the evaluation process. To avoid this, some employees use the field review method. In this method, a trained, skilled representative of the HR department goes into the field and assists line supervisors with their ratings of their respective subordinates. The HR specialist requests from the immediate supervisor specific information about the employee's performance. Based on this information, the expert prepares a report which is sent to the supervisor for review, changes, approval, and discussion with the employee who is being rated. The ratings are done on standardized forms. Since an expert is handling the appraisal process in consultation with a supervisor, the ratings are more reliable. However, the use of HR experts makes this approach costly and impractical for many organizations. That's all for this video. Thank you for watching. This video is brought to you by Bookstune. Like this video to encourage us. Share this video to spread the knowledge. And subscribe to this channel for latest update.